So as you look at the nature of sexual sin in the church today, particularly struggles with pornography, just the stronghold that it has in the life of Christians and church, do you tend to view it as the glass being half full or the glass being half empty? Well, this is Jason for Soulfire. Here on this video, I want to give you two perspectives that you could have on the battle for purity in the church. On the one hand, you could say, woe is me, there's really nothing we could do. On the other hand, you could actually see God has clearly given us what we need to accomplish and to achieve victory in this struggle for holiness, struggle for sexual integrity. All right, so let's jump right into this. We're going to do a little bit of Bible study today. I want to jump into Numbers chapter 13. We're going to look at how the spies who were sent into the land to view Canaan viewed what they saw as they got into the land. So a little bit of context here, if you're unfamiliar with the book of Numbers, God had called his chosen people out of Egypt. So that's where we had the 10 plagues, brought God's people miraculously into the land. They were supposed to go into Canaan. And so all those miracles took place. They get the 10 commandments. There's some rebellion along the way. They're marching toward the promised land. They get right outside of the land of Canaan in Numbers 13. And God tells them this. He says, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. And so they choose some men among them. They send them into land. And this is good battle strategy, right? If you're going to go into conquest another land, you need some intel. So they're going to go in and just kind of check it out a little bit. And so what they're supposed to look for, see where the land is, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they're few or many, whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage, bring some of the fruit of the land. All right, so they go up, they spy out the land, and they check it all out. And at the end of 40 days, they return. They came to Moses, so there's 12 spies, remember, and they say, hey, guess what? We saw the fruit of the land and it flows with milk and honey. This is its fruit. They had some of the fruit that they brought back. However, and when you're reading this and you see this however, this is when it goes from like, hey, we can do this to however, we got some bad news, all right? However, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negeb, the Hittites, and all these other people that dwell there. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Now we have the conflict of opinions. The men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report. The land through which we have gone to spy, it is a land that devours its inhabitants. All the people we saw in it are of great height. There we saw Nephilim, the sons of Anak. We seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we cede to them. Now here's what happened. We got 10 of the spies that say, listen, the people in there, they're too great, they're too big, we can't do it. 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, somehow saw something drastically different. Caleb says, let's go right now. We can take the land. Now these 12 men all saw the same thing, yet their perspective was radically different. But look at the impact that it had on the people. We're now into chapter 14. The congregation raised a loud cry. The people wept that night. All the people grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said, would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into the land to fall by the sword? Our wives, our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? They said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Now it's important to understand here what they're saying. Going back to Egypt was the place of bondage. They are now saying it would be better to choose slavery in Egypt than to follow God and his calling into the land of promise. Now, I find this actually pretty interesting because have you ever heard that phrase, you're choosing between a rock and a hard place? What they see set before them is either slavery in Egypt or battle, which would most certainly lead to their death. Neither one of these options are particularly good, but there's one thing that the people forgot. Only one of those options had God promised that he would be with them, had God promised that he would give them the victory. I can see this very clearly in the life of someone who struggles with sexual sin. The choice that you have is not between necessarily freedom and slavery, but the choice that you have is go back to slavery, stay stuck in sexual sin, or do the hard, difficult work, do the battle that it would take to walk in holiness and to walk in purity and to walk in freedom. But just like the people, there's only one of those things where God has promised to be with you. God has not called men and women in the church to run back to slavery because that's the easiest choice, to run back to slavery because it's familiar, it's a place you've been. God is calling us to reject that, to move into the promised land, to move to the place of freedom. But we have to realize it's not an easy journey. It's a difficult journey. All right, let's get back here into the text as we see what they're going to do. So Moses and Aaron fall on their faces. They have a little bit of time to think through this. And now Joshua and Caleb try to talk the people out of this rash decision. They were among the people who'd spied out the land. They tore their clothes. They said to the congregation, to the people of Israel, the land with which we had passed is exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Now, I'm going to go ahead and argue here that Joshua and Caleb give what is perhaps one of the best motivational speeches that I have ever heard. You see, they saw giants in the land, but they said, look, if the Lord delights in us, he'll bring us into the land. He'll give it to us. Do not rebel, but the people of the land are bread for us. Now, I don't know if that's some like ancient Near East smack talk, but I think that's pretty awesome. He sees the enemy and says, this is like winner, winner, chicken dinner. They are nothing but bread for us. We can go into the land. We can conquer these people because the Lord is with us. He says, do not fear them. The Lord has removed their protection from them. Joshua and Caleb, as they saw the giants in the land, they saw easy victory because their focus was on God. Now, how do the people respond? Well, next verse. All the congregation said to stone them with stones. So Joshua and Caleb's word fell on deaf ears. The people were not motivated to follow the voice of the Lord. But as I think about this passage of Scripture, it really speaks to me in a number of ways that I see Christian leaders in particular view the struggles with sexual sin. I've had many pastors, I've had many religious workers and teachers view the landscape of sexual sin in America, view the nature of pornography addiction primarily with our young men and women in the church today, and they've said, listen, there's nothing we can do. It's almost like they are resigned to choose slavery. But as they think about engaging in ministry, as they think about doing battle with what seemingly are giants in our land, they are full of fear. They do not want to go and engage. But I think the words of Joshua and the words of Caleb are very clear to us. God has promised us one thing, to be with us in the battle. We must go and fight. I love those words of Caleb in Numbers 13:30. Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. So the question for you would be this: as you see the giants in the land, who are you with? Are you with the 10 or are you with the 2? And what is it that gives you that choice? Well, love to hear your thoughts. As you think of the struggles that the church has with sexual sin, do you think that we can win this, or are we stuck and there's nothing we can do? Are you with the 10 or the 2? Be sure to post your comments below. If this video was helpful, definitely subscribe, hit the like button as well. That helps me as I try to grow the channel. This is Jason for Soulfire. Here on this channel, we want to bring gospel hope for a porn-filled world. Catch you in the next one.